And good evening. Welcome to another night of local news brought to you by CITV and Waterloo. I'm Vincent Peters. But first, here's stories from your community. The Superannuation Fund is one area that is adding to the pressure that is being experienced by Cook Islands businesses. This was mentioned in a statement released by the Chamber of Commerce yesterday, but is an issue that has been previously raised. In a statement in June this year, the Chamber requested that the Superannuation Board invest some of the fund locally.
I've read the Chamber's comments this morning, and the Chamber have raised those issues previously, and the trustees of the Superannuation Fund, which is the New Zealand Public Trust, are at the direction of the board currently looking at opportunities with regard to our investment of funds here. The board has asked that we have a look at that situation. The law at the moment with regard to the Superannuation Fund provides that 20% of a maximum of 20% of the Superannuation Fund can be invested locally, and we're currently looking at our statement of investment policies and objectives to see whether we wish to go that way.
According to Superannuation CEO Anne Herman, there is currently about $18 million in the fund. 20% of that fund will be $3 million, which is a nice tidy sum for investment. Any money invested locally is good for the economy.
But with regard to investment locally, yes, the board and the trustee are looking at it. We've got a variety of opinions, and we will make an informed decision in due course, in consultation with the Minister, of course, because he has an interest in he's responsible for the act ultimately.
Bringing that 20% back or even the entire fund would require more consideration on the part of those in charge of the fund, especially into setting up incentives and policies that will allow the fund to grow to our advantage.
In the original, in the establishment of the fund, the original statement of investment policies and objectives placed it into a tax-neutral investment that at the time was deemed to be probably the best opportunity. The situation is that investment here probably could be tax-neutral, but that is part of the consideration we have to do with regard to a change in our statement of investment policies and operations.
The Chamber of Commerce in June also raised other concerns, such as resistance to the scheme and possibly stretching out the increments over 3 years rather than the current 1 year, which is seen to be harsh for workplaces. Other concern was removing expatriate short-term contract workers from the scheme. Currently, expatriate workers who have worked here for under 3 years can collect their contribution, but their employer's contribution goes into a reserve fund.
The board are promoting a review of the total fund because it's 8 years old now, so we want to have a look at all the areas, and we're currently trying to put those things in place at the moment to just have an overall view.
The review of the 8-year-old Superannuation Fund will come as good news to employers, the Chamber and local businessman Sam Crocombe, who carried out a petition against the fund earlier this year. This is Vincent Peters for CITV and Waterloo Local News. Norman George has issued a lengthy written statement to the media voicing concern at the ongoing situation in Aitutaki over the Sunday flights. He says after seeing the situation firsthand and receiving complaints from members of the Aitutaki community made up of the Arona Mana, church leaders and Democratic Party executive members, he feels duty-bound to draw public attention to what is happening in Aitutaki. Resistance against Sunday flights to Aitutaki is growing and not disappearing. Most of the island is against the holding of the Manea Games. Some villages like Tautu are refusing to allow their fields and facilities to be used for the Manea Games. He says he has been advised that only the village of Amuri is supporting the Manea Games. Norman George continued to say that Aitutaki wants to boycott the Manea Games to prevent Air Rarotonga from benefiting commercially as a protest against Sunday flights. The Times this weekend will print the full statement. Mr. George is acting as a defense counsel for 4 people charged with airport protest-related matters. He will return to Aitutaki to defend them when a trial date is confirmed. Norman George will also make a further public news release sometimes next week in relation to the Aitutaki Sunday flights. He will make that statement as a barrister and solicitor. I'm Vincent Peters with tonight's CITC and Wattle Local News. We'll be right back with more local news after this commercial break.